This is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
Having your gang, it's the Black Country Blokes chewing the fat with me, Kev, Dillon, and Lee Cadman. Now, once again, we've got my dad, Bob Dillon, on the show. Now, we tried doing this earlier in lockdown, but through technical difficulties, we had to cut it short. But how many people have contacted us saying, bloody hell, I didn't realise that about your dad. So he's going to be telling us about his journey when I lost my vision at an early age. And I think that's something that Lee and Dad can both relate to, both being in that situation at similar age for their children. And then other things that's gone on in his life that have left him with panic attacks, anxiety, and a number of things. And I think more of those blokes and these real blokes that Bob Dillon is, big, tough, world-class boxing coach, can talk about our demons, then hopefully the next generation will be easier and easier for them to talk. So, Dad, thank you.
Right, mate.
So let's go through from when I first got poorly.
Well, it sometimes it's like a bad film to go from like having everything was perfect in my life to when anybody's poorly in your family or in your friends, then you feel horrible. You feel like you've got no you've got no control. You was like most kids. You was hyperactive. Your poor mom, she wanted the VC for. She never had any sleep with you. And me, I was a typical guy. When I work in the building. I'm out laying slabs and bricks and knocking things down all day, and coming home and having my tea. And you was bouncing around. You always bounced around like Tigger out of Winnie the Pooh. You'd always got energy. You always wanted this, that, and you were just great. And always have been, always had that energy. And then come home a couple of times and you would be poorly, you'd be asleep, and your mother kept taking to the doctors. And then I've come in the one day, and I used to go out once a week, which is a Friday. I wasn't coaching those days. I'd packed in boxing and everything, and went for a drink with Uncle Roy. I came back for some reason. Nobody in the house. I walked up to my mum's because that's where we always used to go, and we had no phones in those days. And there you are, you're in a coma. The doctor said, let's get him straight in because I can't get nothing going. You were in a coma. And we got to the hospital and some lovely doctors. Needles in you, Kevin, in the bottom of your feet. They're... And I'm running around the bed. I'm running around the bed saying, what's the matter? And this doctor just stopped me, put both hands on my chest and said, Mr. Dillon, we're trying to get your son back. He's dead. We're trying to get him back. And wow, it was bad. It was. And your mother, who's the strongest person I've ever known, is just there, just like willing you to come back to us. You were breathing. So when he said dead, you were brain dead. You got into this coma, and you were there. And then they go and fetch another. They fetch another doctor out, and then you woke up, and I'm froze to the ground. What do you mean he's brain dead? He's brain dead. And then you woke up screaming and shouting, and by which time Dr. Leyland has been dragged out of his important dinner party, and we're sent home with you.
They just said I was a naughty kid. They said I was.
No, me and your mum were sent home, but your mother never left your side. And then the next day we got there, and Dr. Leyland, that's when we met Dr. Leyland, and he looked at us really gruffled and pissed off. He said, all I'm going to say to you is this, Mr. and Mrs. Dillon, take your child home, teach it how to behave. You've got an hyperactive child that's had too much energy, and he's spoilt, and he doesn't know the manners. And we both stood there like been hit in the face with the kipper's dick. It was like, whoa. and we came away stunned. That night,
Bob,
Mum-
my experience with the coma is something similar. I mean, the second time my daughter was put in a coma, I was at home and Nikki had gone away with the children to a Dravet weekend at Centre Parks, close to Nottingham. And basically, I got a phone call saying you better get here. This is really serious. You know, she was fine throughout the day, and then it was you better get here, Lee. It's serious. So I bombed it up the motorway to Nottingham, got there, and the room was just full of doctors and nurses running around like crazy around my daughter, sticking things, you know, just about everywhere to get her into an induced coma. It was that serious, and it's just horrible. You can't even describe it to people. You feel sick. You don't know what you don't know what to do. You feel like you're in the way. You know what I mean? With all these people, you feel like you're in the way. You just don't know what to do with yourself. Although it's just a horrible experience. So I can really relate to that.
unless
really
you've
feel
had
for
it,
you.
unless you've had it, you can't relate, can you? God love
Nah.
everybody because everybody wants to know how, you know, and give you stuff, but you can't. You
No.
cannot. I mean, so this doctor, who I've been brought up in my generation, rightly so, because that's what I think society's gone tits up, he's a special person. He's gone to university, and you can see all the doctors and nurses around him, all bow cowing to him, and that wonderful doctor that had who was there to meet us, and those nurses, we were fantastic. So I am going to be saying some things about people, but the medical profession, as you will agree, are frigging brilliant. But it's when all of a sudden somebody who is God says something, and maybe that's what's wrong with our society. We're all afraid that we're wrong. You can't be wrong. Can't be wrong.
I mean, from my experience again, we've got some fantastic doctors who take care of Calla and took care of her. But we've also learned now, nearly 6 years in, that there's no one knows Calla like we know her. So sometimes I don't want to put doctors down and saying like, but they're giving you advice off their knowledge of medical, not off Calla. Sometimes, if that makes any sense. Sometimes we don't go against it, but we certainly question them. But that's took us probably 3 years in to realise that. Before we would just blindly follow whatever they were saying. So if we've had it before with no, she's okay, you're good to go home now, and then within 24 hours you're back up the hospital. And that actually happened. She came out of a coma. We got transferred back to our local hospital. We got released from our local hospital the same day. Within 24 hours she was back in a coma. And I said the day before, I said to my wife, we got took down onto a normal ward, and she'd been seriously ill. We got took down onto this normal ward, and I think she picked something up at that point, which then reversed all the work that had been done. So sometimes, and we didn't question it, but I went down to that ward and I said to Nikki, we shouldn't be down here. But I questioned it with Nikki and not the doctor. Whereas now, there's no doubt about it. If I don't feel right about something, I'll make sure my voice is heard. And it's not that the doctors are trying to be horrible and say, well, you know, you don't know what you're doing. This is where she needs to be. It's just that's the way they usually do it. Because and it's typically they don't know Calla as well as we do.
Well, that's what happened with Kevin. That he's bouncing around. Our Kevin and even his brother, they're very inventive. They're Kevin was just hyperactive and he's into everything. He's so clever, like his brother, so clever. They're inventive. They can't sit down for 5 minutes without they want to go and do something. And Julie's going to the GP for a couple of weeks, and then the doctor turns around and says to the GP, who's another lovely man, Mrs. Dillon, I can't find nothing wrong with him. Well, of course you can't find nothing wrong with him because it was meningitis. You should have had a freaking blood test. But you had a look at him and said, oh, it's just an overbearing mother. It's a mother that's just, but it wasn't our first. So we're sent home with him. My little bundle was sent home with him. And luckily, I've got a great imagination, as Kevin's passing on to my granddaughter, my beautiful Babs, Jasmine. And then I used to always tell him stories and stuff. So anyway, we go to bed that night, and then I heard a scream. I shot out of bed. Julie went to bed with Kevin, and I got in Kevin's bed and tried to get to sleep. And I'm like, I'm bollocks, like, as you can imagine. Well, wow, you know, what about that wanker saying we're spoiling him, the kid's bad? He'd gone blind. He'd gone totally blind, as in black. Imagine why he woke up screaming when he got all them needles in him. He 1 minute he's down here, and the next minute he's in a room with lights, with people running around sticking fucking needles in him. So that's what the kid woke up screaming. But these doctors know more than you. They're a specialist, so it's no different to if a plumber comes in and says to you, well, you're not very well because your plumbing's still got some lead in it. You could be talking bollocks, but he's a plumber. You're trained to accept what people that are cleverer than you tell you. So off we go again, and we saw a fantastic doctor called Mr. Scott, and he had a look at Kevin, and he went through stuff, and he had a look at the records, Lee, and he said, have you had him a blood test or a urine test or a sweat test or a lumbar puncture? And we went, no. He said, well, this is wrong. So then he got him on a scan, and he had him like doused with some medication so you couldn't fight. Well, you know, and I know what our Kevin's like. If you say to Kevin you can't do a pull-up, he'll say, all right, then he'll train until he can do a pull-up. That's Kevin. That's how he's got through. So, long story short, we can't knock him out, and we come back home with him, and then we go back again, and the doctor says, look, I've called this man in. His name's Mr. Green from Birmingham's Children's Hospital. And when anybody came round Kevin then, because of the needles, he fired off. He's throwing left hand, backhands, hooks, bites, kung fu, aikido. He's kicking off. And I'm just there, and all I want to do, I just feel empty because he can't see. And this Dr. Green comes in with his colleague, and they have a look, and he does some things with him, and he was a saint. God rest his soul, he was a saint. And he says, I'm not happy. He says, they've done no tests on this child. I'm taking him over to my hospital. So they ordered an ambulance. The ambulance came, they put him in the ambulance, and your mother's a saint, you know that, Kev. She, best human being. She bungles you up and gets in there with you, and I'll follow them out when we get there. And within an hour, they've done a urine test, they've done a sweat test, they've done the blood test. I held you down while they did the lumbar puncture. And then a couple of hours after that, we sat there, and he comes bouncing in, Mr. Green. He says, it's a form of meningitis, which has done some damage to the eye, but it's all going to come back. You're all right. Oh, lottery. It's all right. You're going to be all right. We'll stay in here. You can leave him here. And your mum says, no, I'm not leaving him here. But your eyesight's going to come back. So I'll shoot off arm. I tell everybody, we all have a bloody good cry. I get there next day. I'll drive back up to the Birmingham's Children's Hospital, and you're there, and I'm telling you stories about Patch and your mum, about Mombra and Super Kev and the dog fighting all the baddies, and all the kids are coming around me, and they're still giving you steroids now, Kev. And your mum's there, and your mum would shoot off to have a shower and come back, and I'd give her a clout to change it, and I'll be talking to the kids, Lee, and as these kids would be there, I'll be telling them the stories, and then I'll say, and as I'm on the cliff and Kevin's fighting these dragons, and all of a sudden, I'll tell you the rest tomorrow. And there was these little kids there that would go, oh, mister, you know, and then I'd go away. It'd be 9 o'clock at night, and I'd come back the next day. And I'd say, where's little Lee? Where's little Bob? And that's how he went last night. Oh, that's a shame. I wish I'd told him the story. It wasn't until into our second week that I realised these kids had died in the night. It absolutely done me to this day. These little
again,
guys.
I've got a similar experience. When Calla went into her third coma, we come back into Birmingham Children's. We were on the liver ward, and luckily, I've not been in a situation like that where the children have been not been there the next day. But this lad there, he was in a bad way, and it really, and we'd just been through hell. it really makes you appreciate what's happened and where you are at that point, because I was, you know, this poor lad had really gone through the ringer, and basically it wasn't looking good for him unless he got a transplant. And you just think, you know, we've got Calla who's been unwell. There's no doubt about it, but she is well. She's not that well that you think you're going to lose her tomorrow. It is possible through a seizure, but she's not ill in the sense that she's waiting for a transplant, and it's, you know, if it doesn't turn up, that's it. And you can't imagine being in a position as a parent with that stress. You know, that if you don't get this transplant, it's done.
But you see, while you're suffering, it's no good coming to me and saying that Lee's got it worse, to me, because all I'm concerned about is my child.
Oh, yeah.
I love Lee to bits, and I love his family. I love Nicky, and I love the kids. But don't come to me at the time I was struggling. And not that happened at the hospital, to be honest. But when you're nearly, it's a dark, scary place, because you're there to protect your family. You're there to protect your family.
And you're helpless.
Castrated. Go on.
Yeah, and you're helpless, aren't you? You're there to protect your family, but what can you really do, Bob? You can only be there. You haven't got a magic wand that takes it away or changes anything. You just got to rely on the people around you that they're doing their job right. And
that's the bit like with the doctors. They were fantastic, and the nurses over there, and and Julie never left his side. And the one that struggled the most, other than Kevin, was Richard, because he got up the day that it all had happened, and poor Kev, this beautiful kid that would fight the devil, has been lifeless and poorly and having needles stuck in him. I'm talking 30 years ago, so we've come on a long way. And steroids, they weren't quite even up to them. That the steroid is best used when he's hot. So this nurse used to walk round when we stayed in there for a bit, and she would have the steroid in a bra underneath the breast, and that got it to the right temperature. So when he got to have it, she would take it and give him. When we went to another hospital, well, it was called Corbett's, and it wasn't the nurse's fault, but the nurse got it and sticking it in him, and he screamed, and I thought, what's happening? She'd put it in cold, so it was like putting in mastic. So, so back to Birmingham. So I'm going over there, and I'm like me. I'm telling all the kids' story and Super Kevin, and then I find out they're dying, and then we get really friendly with this family from Hereford that had come to Birmingham Children's Hospital, and they said exactly what you said there. They said, like, their son was dying, and he got cystic fibrosis. So they was after a pair of lungs and a heart, because his heart had given out. And I says, oh, well, all right. And I felt so sorry for him. And this is human, you see. This is the human behaviour. I mean, I looked at this beautiful little child that was a couple of years older than Kevin. And I thought, this is hell. This is hell. You got all these sick children. I can't help nobody. And I said to him, how is he? And she says, like, we've got 24 hours to 48 hours. He's got cystic fibrosis, obviously, from birth, which is terrible. If he doesn't get his heart and his lungs, then he's gone. And I'm like, oh, I hope it happens. She says, but we're hoping for another child to die so his ours can live. And I went, and how do you get through it? You don't, Lee. This is the problem. You don't. And it's all right, people saying, oh, you'll be all right, you'll get through this. You don't. You literally drown, and then you become another person. So I'm like devastated. I've befriended these people. I've lost these kids, and I'm driving up and down the motorway, and my mum and dad are making me sandwiches like I'm back at the school to send it to school, and then they're coming up in the day to make sure Julie can. So all this is going on. You're not too bad in the eater battle, are you, Lee? You're not too bad, you know, because you're jabbing and you're removing, and you're slipping.
Your mind's occupied, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is where, like, it starts to go a little bit wrong. And then they said, well, his eyesight will come back, but it's taking a little bit more time than what we thought. And more steroids. And then a lot of people around us who we knew, Richard's football team, and God love that lad, and mum and dad who were out this world. And we come back, and my long life best friend I've been very lucky that I've got two guys that have been with me. He's Nigel Porter, godparent to my kids and me, him, and best man at each other's wedding. And you know, he'll never know what strength he gave me. You know, he was there. He was one of them that didn't. Like, I had uncles that, oh, all right, I'll give you a ring, and then they put the phone down, and that's no disrespect to them. I'm thinking about, yeah, oh, that's nice, I'll get through that then. And they put the phone down, whereas Nigel would come round, and he'd sit with me. And we wouldn't talk about it. You know, we would, but he'd just be there. And that was Nige doing what Nige does. He'd come round. I got another best mate who's John Shakespeare, who helped me get through it when my mum died. Same thing. No need for words with those kind of people. They come, they sit. Because the one thing that really pisses me off when it's like, oh, we know how you feel. How the fuck you know how I feel? I don't know how I feel. So anyway, we get him home and then we start going over, and then they turn around and say, well, this ain't going to come back by now. Should have come back by now. So what I was trying to say is every step of the way I've been let down by the system, because the people that run the system that know best had dropped the bollock, but nobody was prepared to say we dropped the ball.
Especially not back in 1987. You know, back in the mid to late 80s, they didn't admit they did anything wrong back then, did they?
Well, no.
Kev, I don't think it's any different now.
It's not. It's not, because the more I have to do with organisations, it's not that those nurses and those doctors was brilliant, but it's a cover up, like when we took them to court for 8 years, and not to get somebody the sack. I needed to know that if I could get the right money for Kevin and stuff. To stop it from happening again.
Yeah, you've made a good point there.
Because it was, you're a lawyer.
Yeah, people don't realise the cost of bringing up anyone with a disability, the added cost. Obviously, I can't speak for you and Kev. My daughter's she's not blind, but in terms of equipment, to buy her a wheelchair was £8,500. Now we're lucky. I work for the company, so I got it half that cost. But still, that's £250 that we had to spend on a wheelchair just to get her around. You know, people, the financial burden is immense. So if it's because of some negligent point, then you're well within your rights to fight to get Kev the best care you can and the best equipment that he potentially would need.
But we couldn't get it, could we?
Well, no, but it's been everything. It's been every step of the way with everything. And unless you're involved in something, then you don't know. It's like, so we try to take him back over X amount of years, and then he goes to play school around there, and he's got all his friends, and he's as happy as Larry, because that's the kind of kid he is. He don't want to be broke. As he got older and met the things that people should have been there to help him with, he's been let down by other human beings not doing their job, which is ABC, and it's more right. So
we've had a similar experience with schools. Sorry, Bob. We've had a similar experience with schools, which I know you had as well with Kev. Because I was speaking to Julie about it when we were going through it, and the hassle of getting the right, number one, the right school, and secondly, the right people around him in that school, the right help within that school. And we ended up going to tribunal over that, and it's all added stress that you don't need, and it's all because and this was really backhanded, some of the things that the council did to stop my daughter going from the school that she needs, and trying to put her in a school that wouldn't have been suitable for her. But it goes that backhanded that on the day before the tribunal, we had Calla's nursery head teacher. We wanted her to be there as a witness. You know, she's just took her through nursery. If there's anyone who understands her educational needs, there's no one better. She's took her through nursery for the last 3 years. So we wanted her there. And on the day before, so that was all agreed, put in writing. On the day before, they said you can't go because of a conflict of interest. I thought, well, you're not interested in Callum's well-being then. You're just interested in winning this at whatever cost.
Yeah. And it's people. I honestly believe that everybody goes into their professions for the right reasons. I honestly believe that they go in there to be teachers and they go in there to be medical. I mean, the doctor, he dropped an almighty bollock. All I wanted, it wasn't personal to that doctor. It was, because his needs are going to be, I need to get the reading apparatus. I need this, I need that. It become personal, and there was records lost. On such a, yeah, we had him all. No, you didn't. And then we go and see this solicitor that dealt in this up in Birmingham, and he'd say, "I'm sorry, you've come over. I can't tell you no more today, but for the simple reason is they haven't got the records. They're all lost." So we had all of that, and then we're going through it, and then he joins the school next door, registered blind, and we take him next door, and that's okay. They're going to give him a one-on-one teacher there. I wish to God I'd have gone with me gut. I wish to God I'd have gone with me gut, because he was so happy there. He was so happy. Got all his friends. I was going to bring a teacher with him that was going to sit with him, that was specially trained to do with visually impaired, that disability. And then they would bring him through, and he got all his mates. And Julie, like your Nikki, and like a lot of, if he couldn't go and play with them, then she'd go and round the kids up and bring them to play with us. Or not us, with Kevin. And then we have somebody come from Dudley Council, and they say, look, we're setting up a unit in Bromley Lane, and it's going to be for the kids that are blind, and he's best there. And then
it was a mainstream school, wasn't it? But they had the visually impaired and blind unit, wasn't it?
So they had a unit within the school, Bromley Hills. Lovely people, lovely school, lovely headmaster. He was at this world, and he's made friends from up there, which are fantastic. So again, it's not personal, but it's the system that I'm saying. We are all frightened of being wrong. Everybody's frightened of being wrong. If my granddad told me that that's how they killed pigs back in the 40s, and it didn't hurt the pig, and then somebody turns around now and says to me, well, it did, that was wrong. 40 years on, we've got a lot more experience. So I don't mind being wrong anymore, because I was wrong about weight training, even though I've done all the courses. You can only train them like for 6 months. It's okay to be wrong. We are a society that are petrified of being wrong. We're petrified. So these people from the school, and we're trying to get with it. We're a young family. Richard is trying to come to terms with it. I'm trying to come to terms with it. Julie's trying to keep the bounty. My mum, who was my strength of the family, and my dad, who got chronic Parkinson's. So no, you're best sending him there. I said, well, he's happy here. You're going to give him a teacher one-on-one, and he will have everything he wants. Now he'll be better there because he'll be better. It was just, I'll come to it. He'll have all the best computers. He'll have all the best teachers. He'll have all the best to get to hospitals. And they promised me Disney World, right? So my mum and dad and Julie says, look, we got to go where he's got to go. And I said, well, he ain't going to Worcester or anything. And no. Me and Julie's adamant that he stays with us. He don't go into boarding. So we went there. But that information that we were given by those teachers and by the head of that education, they've got pay scales. So if they could get him there, they've got jobs. And their jobs went from a 1 to a 6, which meant a lot of more money. And they've got their own. All right. So it would have been better here. Now in Foresight, it would have been better here, because he'd still have all his friends. He'd have had one-on-one tutoring. And when he's in playtime, Mr. Dillon, and dinner time and that, he'll have a teacher with him all the while. And this is the stuff you said. So I used to ride by the school, and I'd pull up, and sometimes I'd look into the playground, and he'd be sat there on his own. So he'd come back in the night time, and I said, all right, Kev, yeah, you was on your own. Yeah, no, I don't know where my friends was. Well, where was the teacher? Oh, she said she had to have a cup of tea.
Well, I used to hate the support teachers. They're what ruined it for school with me.
For a reason.
Because all all you want to be is normal, isn't it? And when you fancy a girl or you want to talk to Paz or Cash and Quint or whatever, they'd humiliate you and really point out that you were different. And then if you did something, then the main teacher would go, well, don't disrespect Miss, she's here. You know, and it was the singling out that really broke me for education. All I need you for is to help
That's
me to
called
read.
torture.
Yeah. All I need you for is to show me how to type. And the teachers, mainstream teachers, they knew I couldn't see. They'd write on the board, say, all right, then everyone copy this. And I think all you've got to do is, as you're writing it, say, the cat sat on the mat, and I'm type. But they'd write and go, all right, then I'm going to do something, you copy it. And I thought, and I think that's why I've become a good coach, because you've got to work to people. If you can't do something, I'll find something for you to do. And I think a lot of people who knows in them jobs are just, no, I can't be asked.
I think it could be as well, Kev, that they haven't got
100%.
the experience, and they don't realise that. They don't realise that. I mean, you'd think it'd be obvious, but you kind of see it sometimes. If you've ever spoke to anyone who's deaf, and you're not facing them, and then all of a sudden you realise that I've done it. You know, within my job where I've been fitting wheelchairs to children, and I'm down on the floor fitting this wheelchair, talking, but they can't hear a thing I'm saying or read my lips. And it's not that I was being rude; it's just you forget sometimes, don't you, where you are, or you don't have the experience at that time to realise what you're doing.
But if you're a teacher in that situation, you should be more educated.
Yeah,
and I think like sometimes because I was different to a lot of the other visually impaired people, they were mommy and daddy, hold my hand, I go here, and I didn't. I'd like falling over to know where the step was. So maybe I was just a difficult kid to teach.
Yeah. You're definitely more independent than than a lot, aren't you?
Go on, Dad.
But he was made independent. Well, none of us are born independent. He was made independent by his mother and me and his brother and his grandparents. I wanted to do this, look, go and do it. You can do it, but you'll do it a different way to what I do it. And then, but what, see, this is my new thing. You know, everybody goes through a learning thing. I've not got a problem being wrong anymore. These people were wrong, and it's called an ego. And you've got to get used to being wrong. If you're teaching 10 children and 9 get it and 1 don't, then you're wrong with that one child. And it was only the same with Kevin. It was his eyes. He couldn't see. So a teacher to turn around, which they did, and wrote something and told him to write his writing in a yellow marker on white paper and not write big. I mean, for Jesus Christ. And then when we went to see the head teachers about it, it was, yeah, okay, we'll sort that out. But it was hushed up. And then, like when Kevin worked with me in the schools, we were seeing the same problems that Kevin had in the schools. So the people that have told us, we'll take him to Bromley Lane, and then when he's finished with Bromley Lane, he'll go to Kids Swinford or Summerhill, because then he'll have the education, he'll have one-on-one. When the time comes, now we're going to send him to Ollie Hall. Whoa, what do you mean you're going to send him to Ollie Hall? I know all about Ollie Hall. I know all up there, but all his mates are going to Kids Swinford, Summerhill. Now, well, we think it's going to be, what you mean, you think? And again, you know, the policeman knows better, the headmaster knows better, the head of education, they was just building up another, I'm going to work there. The one teacher turned out to Kevin and says, you've got to learn to use a white cane. No. I don't want the white cane for the reasons Kevin will tell you. Well, you've got to. All hell broke loose. All hell broke loose. So he's not struggling with being blind. He always has done because he don't want to be different. The reason is he's always struggled with being different. What made him feel different? No, it wasn't the fact that he lost his eyes. It's the fact that people said he got to learn their way. He got to learn their way, Lee. He didn't want to learn their way. He wanted to learn. Oh, you can't do that. Why? Because you'll fall over. He says, well, I'll get up. Or you can't learn to read. I remember going to do sums at school, with a Mr. Oh, his name will come to me. Despicable human being. And, his name will come then. And he taught me to do arithmetic this way. And he got a pervert pleasure that I couldn't grasp it. But I'd come home of a night time. I was at Pensley Street and my mum would teach me. So even though I got the sum right next day, because I couldn't work it out the way he'd worked it out, he would belittle me. He would belittle me. Now, they basically did the same thing with Kevin with his eyes because he wouldn't fold. I mean, we went to Wally school, which is great and lovely. We was told by the teachers, get him out of this school. It's not safe. So we had to go to court about getting him out of school. But when the teachers couldn't go and say they'd told us because they'd lose the job. God love them. I have not got a problem with that. But I had a problem with the head people because all it boiled down to, it wasn't looking after Kevin. They wanted to look after what the money they'd spent on that education. Mad? Is that mad or is that mad? And then he goes to college, Stanford College, and does and done brilliantly with media. He was brilliant. And then I said after he'd done that and he got all his qualifications, Kev, why don't you go and do sport and we'll work together? Go and get all your, because he's cleverer than me and he's brilliant. We went and done a strength and conditioning course. I came third, he came first, 99, he got out of 100. So he's brilliant at how he does stuff. But he goes to college, Stanford College, and them all there, yeah, we'll have you, we'll come in and whatever. Excuse me, miss, she says to this woman who's in charge at the counter, I've come to join up, I'm Kevin Dillon. She says, yeah, over there, yellow paper, fill that in. And he says to her, I'm sorry, I'm visually impaired, I can't see. She said, well, that ain't my problem. That's good, isn't it? That's good. So this is Stanford College. So we've had all that with the education. Because once Kevin's left the school, Ollie Hall, we got him into a great school, Hillcrest up
Crestwood.
Now he started to do well. Crestwood, I do apologise. Now he started to do well. Then he's found out he can't box because of his eyes. His eyesight's too bad. But all the education wanted to do was make him feel disabled. He's not disabled. He can't see very good. Only glasses won't repair his eyesight.
Well, I've always said that I'm not a visually impaired man. I'm a man who happens to be visually impaired.
But what I'm having from it now, you can hear it in my voice. I'm getting stressed out. Because there's nobody there to help me. Oh, you'll be all right. There's all kinds of things you can claim. Well, how can I claim his happiness? How can I claim his self-worth? But you can go along and you can claim stuff. Where do I go, Lee? Where do I go? I can't even go anywhere and find out if I can get him a mobile phone that specialises for visually impaired. I can't go along and ask about, nobody wants to know. What about, and then when you turn around and you say to people in education, it was wrong, instead of saying, great, we was wrong, how can we put it right? Do we put it right by 100% or by 40% or by 80%? What do we do? They don't. People hide, and doctors and education, and they hide their head in the sand. If we admit we're wrong, there might be a court case. No, let's make life better. Let's everybody stop telling everybody that everybody's perfect and brilliant. Let's tell everybody you're ordinary. What's wrong with being ordinary? Explain to me what's wrong with being told as a kid, yeah, you're ordinary. All of a sudden we went through a stage, everybody's brilliant. Oh, you're gifted. What's my gift? I don't know. Well, I believe that we're more gifted, but we're a herd. So let's all just be part of the herd. Let's all just be normal. There's no need to be. And if you're a doctor, that's brilliant. And if you're a plumber, that's brilliant. And if you're a roadsmith, then that's okay. What's wrong with being ordinary? But what's wrong with being wrong? Every day I get up now and I think to myself, well, if I find a couple of things that I've been wrong today, I've learned a couple of things. I've learned something. I know for a fact that my coaching's changed a dozen times. And it's had to change because the way I coached was the way I was coached to begin with, and then a guy called Dennis Jackson who was gentler. So I've had to change my styles, and that's what we've got to do with teaching, and that's what we've got to do with secrets. We've got to admit when we're wrong.
But Dad, just
We've got
taking
to
the
admit that
conversation,
we've got that.
just changing the conversation slightly. Sorry, like with everything that happened with me, and then obviously with Grandad being poorly and losing your mum with cancer. Do you think these are the stems, like the building blocks for like the anxiety and the panic attacks and the depression?
Without a doubt, because all of a sudden, like, I've gone through life, even though I struggled with my education because I was deaf, and then I got my hearing back and speech impediment and all of that. That kind of got hang ups. But I'm in a bubble here. I've got the best looking girl I've ever seen that I'm married. I've got an house. I'm boxing. I'm enjoying life. And all of a sudden, all this happens. The anxiety comes to you in that you're all right when you're having the fight. You're having a row with somebody. You're all right. You should have been frightened when that dog was attacking you. You're all right because you're kicking it and doing it. It's afterwards that you're subconscious. I'll be so lucky you got Nick Davis, you got Alexander, and these people that have explained that your subconscious is there to protect you because you're still an animal. And it's there to protect you when it thinks it hears something ruffling in the leaves or in the grass. It's there to protect you when it hears a loud noise so as you can get and run away. But what happens now is all those thoughts when you went poorly, I couldn't do nothing about it. I couldn't even look after Richard properly. I couldn't even sit down with my eldest son and say, look, mate, we'll be all right. We'll be all right with this. Because whatever happens to Kevin, me and you and Kevin and your mom will be all right because we're in the Four Musketeers. I've always explained. Because I didn't know how to handle it. So then I was coming home of a night time, and then we got you back, and all right, we were beginning to live with what was happening with your eyes and what. But I wasn't sorting the problems out because all me uncles and me aunt, you'll be all right. You'll have to man up. That's a good one, isn't it, Lee? You'll have to man up. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. And then other people would come to me and give me the best advice. Oh, I don't know. I'm coping. I'd have ended it all. Oh, thanks. Thanks for that one. Thanks for that one. Oh, how you're handling this stress, I don't know. I'd have gassed myself. Wow. Well, thanks for that one. So then that builds up, you see, that goes in the bank. And then you get yourself right. You think, I'm never going to worry over nothing again. I'm never going to worry nothing again. The fact that I've neglected the one son and I can't help my other son and I'm running around and I'm trying to keep everybody happy and I'm going to get there and I'm letting my wife down who's the best thing that's ever happened to me and took me to where I am. But me one mate, I mean mum and dad, but me one mate Nigel would come and sit and he was the only one that talked sense to me. He was my crutch, and he don't know it. I hope he's listening to this. Best man at each other's wedding. But he was a true friend. He never once turned around and said, he just come and sat and listened. But all that built up. And then I'm having trouble at work because my back's bollocks. To this day, my back is bollocks from the trade and from the boxing, the exercises we did. But my back's bollocks. And a lot of people that boxed when I did, they all had bad backs for the way you did exercises and that. And plus the building trade. So now I'm anxious about that. And then, straight out the blue, been getting on top of life. Mum gets cancer, ovarian cancer. And my mum is like my wife. She's the main pillar of the family. I'm the big personality that walk into a room. I'm like that. When we're in boxing and we go to the Worlds or whatever, I'm the luckiest bloke in the world. I work with Richie Woodall. I work with Rob McCracken. Christ, what they don't remember. I've got a personal friends. I've got Lee Pullen. I've got Dave Alloway. I know Paul Walmsley. I've got Gary Ayer. Bloke, he's Gary Ayer. I've got Graham. All these are great people. All these are great coaches. But anyway, diverting. I got the, but I'm I'm mixing with all these people, so I'm a big personality. And I don't know how to keep my family together. I don't know how to save them. So all this is going on in my head. I don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, my mum, who's the strength of the family, she's poorly. She goes into hospital. Oh, it's more than likely it's going to be a cancer, or it's going to be some kind of little tumour. And we'll take that out, because that's what Sylva had, Julie's mum had. And you'll take it away, because what we find with this is it'll be in the, whether it's in the bladder or whether it's in the womb, it's in the package. We take it out, they open her up, they shut her up, they say she's got ovarian cancer. She'll be lucky to have 12 months. Now, there's my dad with chronic Parkinson's. There's my son, who's the apple of my eye. There's my other son, who's trying to run around and be a man of the family before he should be a man of the family. And there's my wife, who's looking after everybody. And then shit happens. I have a loony sister who comes over and wants everybody to know that she's come over to visit her mom. And there's my wife just quietly going along, looking after everything and making sure everybody's all right. And as for the family, you know, all my uncles and that, we'll be there. They weren't there to our mum's hand. It was my wife. So you've always let down by people that now they go, oh, they know that. You did know that. Where were you to help? But they can't help you because they don't know what you're going through. So then I got all depressed about that, and then she died after. And then I inherited Dad, and he got chronic Parkinson's. And then we had to have him put in an home, and then I'm having people criticise. So it was a nightmare. But what it done is, one thing after the other built up. So it wasn't a little house that I got. It was a frigging mansion. And all it was stress, stress, stress. And more stress. And my mate Big John would, I am lucky about two main blokes in my life as friends. Totally different. Nigel and Big John. Big John used to come and just sit and listen to me, rant and rave, and he'd say, okay, mate, I'll see you tomorrow. That was it, Big John, the quiet man. Really feeling dude, a really good friend. Very lucky to have him. Chalk and cheese. Nigel Porter, exactly the same. But it just left me with all this pent-up frustration. The system doesn't work. The system doesn't work. Where do I go with this frustration? I shouldn't be afraid. I shouldn't wake up. I'm waking up in the middle of the night. I can't fucking breathe. I'm going to work and working. And I've got to do accounts. I was in charge of Dudley Council, like the motor skill then. And I got to go and sit down with other people and talk about accounts and people's livelihoods and stuff. I can't breathe. I'm stressed out in my head. How do you cope with it, Lee? Because it's only till now that I'm beginning to learn to cope. How did you learn with your stress?
Pretty much the same. I got to the point that I was that stressed, anxious. I was going. I still get that now, but I got to the point where it was just too much, and I broke down. I broke down in the doctor's room. I've gone to see the doctor. I think about something. I can't even remember, to be honest. I think I've gone to see him. I'd made an excuse to go and see him. Now, bear in mind, up until that point, I probably hadn't been to the doctor in 15 years. You know, I don't go. And I basically went there and I broke down and because it just got too much. It was. I had a similar story to yours. Within the space of 6 months, maybe a bit longer, 8 months, I had both my nans pass away. Obviously, what was going on with Calla at the time, this was when we were new to it. Nikki's father passed away. I mean, even that. So Nikki was downstairs in resus with her father having a heart attack, and I was upstairs in the children's ward with Calla, who had just had some really bad seizures. Nikki then she had appendicitis. And again, that led on to C. diff. So she was in hospital for a week. While she was in hospital, I was downstairs in resus with Calla, who had gone into a really bad seizure again. And it all just built up. It all just built up. And in truth, it took probably 2 or 3 years. And what really happened was Calla started getting well. And she had a period of probably 6 months where we didn't have many hospital visits, all but your regular checkup type. We didn't have any emergency hospital visits, and it gave me time to stop, and that's what really finished it. Because when you stop, you got time to think. You know, when you, as you said, when you're in the heat of that battle, you don't know what you're doing by any stretch of the imagination. You know, you're running around like a blue horse fly, but you don't really get time to stop and digest of what's happened. And I did that, and it just broke me down. And in the doctors, and they put me into counsellor. I was in counselling, but by the end of the week, that kind of thing, it really went quick. But in truth, the real thing that's helped me is doing this podcast, without a shadow of a doubt. Coming on here, speaking with Kev and Aaron and Craig before we come on. You know, we always have a good chat before we come on, and then speaking to and listen to other people's experience, like you. You know, you're very similar. You know, well, obviously we're a few years behind you, and it is different story, but it's a very similar story. So I feel that I've probably got help before you, just because of the generation that you were in. You had them comments, whereas I've had some comments. The one comment that drives me mad is people going, people go to you, oh, isn't it a shame for her? Like she's dead. You know, is it a shame? Isn't it a shame that she's like that? I'm like, hold up, you know, be round her for half a day, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful, happy child.
Yeah, I agree.
We lost it.
I to this day, I've had no help. I have people that I can't breathe and whatever. And Nick Davis has been a real big help to me. And but I'm on about medical from the doctors or anything. I've gone in there. Look, when was my last one, Kev? When you said you got to get up the doctors and that, and you sent me to Alex.
It was just before. Yeah, well, we've been in lockdown for about 12 years. it was about 2 months before the lockdown, wasn't it? Because it was just when you come back off your holiday, so about January, February, and I said, I phoned up the doctors for you, didn't I? And I said, I'm Bernard Dillon, and I booked your appointment. You've got to go, Dad, because it's all right.
And I saw a young lady, and she said, what's happening? I told her, and much to my surprise, she was, okay, bump, come and see me in a fortnight, bump, come and see me in a fortnight. That didn't help me, but I went, and it was, the doctors I saw before was, well, you just got to get hold of yourself. What do you mean? I get arrested for that, can't I? Grabbing hold of myself in the bus shelter. No, you just got to get hold of yourself. And how many coffees do you drink? There you go. Well, fucking hell, there you go. I've just cured the world. Me, like, I get it. I get it when my life's perfect. My life's perfect. I get it when my life's perfect. And I get one, and I get a belt tap. And you just think to yourself, Jesus Christ, after everything I've done, I went to work for my uncles as an apprentice brickie. Oh, they never taught me jack shit. Taught me how to knock compo up and load bricks out. But I had to go and learn myself to be a bricklayer when I went to the council. And I've done it. So that proves my teachers wrong when they said, oh, we'll never account to much. I was always fighting. That was a bit scary, like when I was going through a bad patch, that I could go off at any time. Like with Richard, I would, it was different like with Richard. With Richard, when he was a young kid and we first moved into the village and he was about 8, and he'd come in and be a bit tearful, and I'd say, you all right, mate? And he'd say, yeah, so-and-so's threatened me. I'd go, oh, how old's he? And he'd go, oh, he's 10. I go, 2 years old is he? So I'd go over the pop and I'd say, hello, mate, are you the one bullying him? Yeah, well, it's naughty and whatever. And then he'd come in the next day, oh, that told me. So I'd go over and I'd say, who's your dad? And they'd say, oh, it's Pinky and Perky. I say, oh, okay. Then I'd go in the pub of a night time and I'd go up and I'd say to the guy, what are you drinking? And they go, oh, lager. Oh, let me buy you a lager. I'd give them a lager. And they'd say, that's nice. I'd say, oh, it's just so there's no hard feelings. Your lad's picking on me, so I've got to pick on you. So what I'm going to do after you've had that drink, I'm going to knock the shit out of you. And, but when Kevin come along, I couldn't do that because once I started, I couldn't finish. So I had to like change a lot of things about myself. I couldn't just go out there, and it was a horrible time. But like I say, the 2 people that got me through, and my wife was Nice Porter, who was always there for me, and Big John Shakespeare.
Dad,
again,
Dad, could I
like
just
with the
interrupt 2
cancer,
seconds? But I think, like myself, Rich, and people, the fighting bit's the easy bit. It's dealing with the problems. Why you've got to go out and have a row.
It is, and then you realise that you're wrong, and so I haven't done that for 100 years,
And then the guilt,
you
then the guilt, the
bit of
worrying,
guilt.
and that just puts
Well,
it onto the fire.
that's the other thing. Is guilt. Is guilt. I've got a real stressful. I've got the best job in the world. I work with the best coaches in the world that happen to be the best human beings. I mean, I can't speak enough about the guys I've just mentioned. If they see that you're down a little bit or you've got a bit of flu, they just fill in for you. Naturally, I'm the luckiest man in the world. I'm the luckiest man in the world that had the best parents in the world that never allowed me, with all my disabilities as a young child, never allowed me to feel sorry for myself. And I've come through this, and I'm still here now, and I still struggle. Sometimes when I get, but now I know it's my subconscious. My subconscious is telling me you've got to be frightened here, and you have to stay right. See, I've gone through a stage in my life where it's, think of the bad thing. If you keep thinking about it, it won't happen. Whereas what you should do is what they're all on about, is think of the good thing, and it will happen. That's what you got to do. But I just wish we come to terms with every day we're going to be wrong about something that we've always thought we were right about. It's not a big problem. Every day you're going to get up and there's going to be problems. They're most probably minute problems, but they're going to be problems, and we'll deal with that shit. There's no such thing as what society wants us to believe, that we're all perfect, that we're all fucking geniuses, and that we're never going to have any problems. The bloke who's got gone and won 40 million, he's going to have a problem. He ain't going to give somebody some money. So somebody's going to call him a wanker. The other 100 people that he's going to give some money and buy a car. So there's always going to be a problem. Or does that sound? So let's just get up and deal with it. And your subconscious, I'm rambling a bit, your subconscious is there to protect you. So when you start getting a nervous stomach, have a think. And if you can't think what it is, just your subconscious getting you ready for when something goes wrong, and you've got to let it go. You've got to go. Do this well-being. Learn how to breathe. Learn how to leaf pull and come something. Think of a leaf going down the river. You've got to do something. You've got to do something. It's not bad to have.
Excuse me, Dad, because we're going to finish in a bit. So, but there is something I wanted you to bring up, like when you were saying about the hamster wheel of life, and when you're saying once I'm never going to worry again. Like when you're on holiday. So, do you want to go into that?
Well, thanks, Kev, because yeah, it's like when Kevin first happened, I said I'll never worry again, and then Bumpy did, and then I can guarantee within me going back to work, I was worrying about, well, I got to get the money, I got to do this, I got to do that, and I could live on the money, and then all of a sudden, my mom gets ovarian cancer, and I got to look after me dad, or talk to me about worry, and then I'm worried sick about doing the show, matching the show. Who gives a fuck if you have 8 bouts or you have 20 bouts? And then that happens, and my dad's in and out of hospital, and my sister's accusing us of whatever, and she's in America doing jack shit, and then she comes over, and relatives are like, oh, it's a shame for our Angie. Oh, I'll never worry again. What we have to be careful of, we naturally worry. We naturally feel ourselves. Do you know what grief is? What Aaron's going through now, because he's lost somebody very close to him. You don't think of the good things you did for that person. It's the same as like, I won't get back on the wheel, the hamster of never worrying again. When somebody dies, you're ridden with guilt that you didn't tell them you loved them enough. You're ridden with guilt that you weren't there when they died. The fact that you've done so much, that's grieving, that's guilt, that's always wanting to be something that you're not. We get on this fucking wheel, and it's constantly, oh, I've got a new car. I hope the next one I get, I hope I can get it a bit newer. I hope I can get an electric one. I hope that the electric one, it can work on fucking sunlight. We do it as a race of people. We're all guilty. No matter how much you say, I'm never going to worry again over jack shit. If I haven't got enough money for an holiday, Then I'll have 2 weeks off and we'll just go over Himley every day. Get your bollocks. Now, soon as you're all right, you start to earn a couple of quid. That £100 a week I'm saving, that's no, you worry. And that's what I'm trying to say. Just realise that we are machines of worry. We always want better things. And we've got to get off it because we waste so much time worrying over shit. And then when you go through what we've been through, us three have been through, you kind of, but you'll still worry. So understand you're going to worry. You're going to worry.
Well, Dad, thank you ever so much for coming on, mate. What we're going to do, I'm going to advertise next week. I'm going to advertise next week's guest, and while I'm talking, have a think if there's any quotes out there that's got you through life or anything that just picks you up in the morning. So next week we've got Emma Dyson coming on the show, who does Rock Chick on Facebook. Lovely woman, very long friend of mine. But when we've been in lockdown, her dad died, Jimmy Dyson, who was a cracking bloke. So we're going to be talking about her life and how hard it is to lose someone through lockdown when you can't have many people at the funeral or even bigger at the wake. So tune in next week, 6 o'clock on here. All right then, Dad, have you got any quotes or sayings?
Yeah, I just something I read because I'm reading this book, and just don't be afraid of being wrong, guys, because now I sit back and I'm wrong 2 or 3 times a day over stuff. I'm less wrong now than what I was 20 years ago. All that knowledge that I thought I was so right, whether it's weight training, whether it's running, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, if you're prepared to admit you're wrong, oh, I never knew that, you're going to learn something. So for me, like I say, I'm less wrong at 63. I'm less wrong now than what I was at 43 because I've admitted, yeah, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I'm not right all the while. Things aren't written in stone. And I think it'll make life a bit happier. All
right, then, mate. Well, thank you very much for coming on again. Yeah, and we'll see everyone next week. So take care of yourselves and of each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.
Listen.